Maybe.
Was it? Or you don't know? Or was it? Why can't you say yes to that? Hello everyone!
Well, hello!
Welcome back to the channel. And welcome back to part 2 of Jack's video that he did last week. Some of you may be watching this in the future and you've clicked on this and you're like, oh my god, that was a cliffhanger and a half. I can't wait to get into part 2.
I'm still in the cliffhanger.
Yeah, we've been waiting on a cliff all week. Well, I have anyway. Jack's told me so many times how much he can't wait to read this to me and to you guys. So I think we should just get straight into it. You know the title by now, which is...
The Old Ones.
The Old Ones. So this is The Old Ones Part 2. Here we go.
Sam awoke to the distant sound of ringing in his ears. It was like the feedback from a loudspeaker in some washed out supermarket, only constant at the same pitch, reverberating through his skull as if his brain was failing to tune in to a completely different radio frequency. He pinched his thumbs against his forehead and winced. He couldn't open his eyes, and for a moment Sam panicked at the darkness. But then suddenly it shifted and Sam slumped his back against the cold hard door in relief. He sighed and he opened his eyes. Before him lay a long winding stretch of hallway. The carpets were cheap and damp, an awful off-brown colour like they'd been fitted in a 2-star motel for 25 years too long. The walls were the same except bleak and yellow, and they stirred in Sam the same uneasy sickness that he'd felt when the skies had shifted tone through the windows of the manor. That's when it hit him. This couldn't be part of the same old glorious house that he'd been in moments before, all of the grandeur squeezed out of it like the last drops of a lemon. Suddenly it hit him. Sam jumped to his feet and tried the handle. He rattled and rattled, but it didn't even shift in its bracket. Nothing, not even an inch. It was as if the door itself had been painted into the very wall, yet it was still cold to the touch, like that same plastic feeling of Abraham Thickett's handshake. Sam pounded his fists on the door. He cried out, "Hello? Hello? Where am I? Where is this? Mr. Thickett? Mr. Thickett, something's gone wrong down here. I can't open the door." "No use with that one," suddenly spoke a voice from behind him. "The metal ones only work one way." Sam jolted and span around. A thin man stood before him in a white button-down shirt that had faded to a pale, sickly, off-colour cream. His cheeks were gaunt and the bags under his eyes were heavy and shadowed. In his shirt pocket were 3 ballpoint pens, and a red ink stain had seeped into the bottom. "What the f—" Sam cried out. "Who are you? Where is this? What is this? I was in a big old house. I think I took a wrong door." "Old house, train carriage, a basement, a mirror. Yeah, that sounds about right," he replied. "They got me through a box. It's fitting, really." What are you talking about?" said Sam. "I've got a job working for an old guy, cleaning his rooms. It's a big place. I must have taken a wrong turn." The strange man took a deep breath and sighed. He pursed his lips in pity and treaded carefully across the old spongy carpet. With his finger and knuckle he tapped the pale yellow wall. And strangely enough, to Sam, it made no sound at all. "Wrong turn, yeah," he said. "Something like that. Wrong turn for you, anyways. You see, it's the right turn for them. It always is. Who knows, you might get lucky and take the next door to a quick end somewhere else. I'm not even sure how long I've been walking these halls now. 5 years? It could be 50, and I wouldn't be shocked. Tell me, what year was it when you opened this one?" Sam shook his head in disbelief. What? What year? What's that got to... It's 1994. What does that matter?" The certainty on the strange man's face suddenly shifted. 1994, he sputtered. No, you're wrong. It can't be. It moves forward, not backwards." The strange man started smoothing his hands together nervously. He furrowed his brow and tilted his head back and forth. He paced back and forth, his shoes sinking softly into the spongy carpet. Sam started to get the strange feeling that wherever he wasn't exactly welcome. It was 2006 when I came through, snapped the man. How can it be 1994? Are you stupid? Are you stupid? Because that doesn't make any sense. Sam held his hands up and shifted his body weight, crouching slightly to level with him. Whoa, buddy, he said. None of this is making any sense to me either. Listen, what's your name? I'm Sam. That's a start, right? I'm a writer, kind of. I'm in between jobs. Henry, he replied. Henry Wilkins. Not like it matters. Okay, Henry. Nice to meet you. We're good. And what did you do? What do you do? How did you get here? Wherever here is. Henry sighed, somewhat calming down with the more and more air that he expelled. I'm an accountant, he replied. Was an accountant. I'm guessing I don't have a job anymore. I answered an ad for a thing for lonely people. It was a box, and when I opened it and followed the instructions, I was here. And where exactly is here? Asked Sam, after pausing and nodding to sate Henry's embarrassment. The Rose, he replied. The back rooms, I think. The place in the middle. They walk these corridors, you know. I've seen them. I've heard them, at least. Seen who? Said Sam, squinting his eyes in confusion, half caught between the ravings of a madman and the only morsel of truth that he could make out. Sam shifted his head. That sound was getting louder again, that white noise of a headache that seemed to be creaking its way through the dull drone of the light fixtures, washed out and bright, too luminous to be artificial, yet too cheap to be anything else. Them, replied Henry, peering towards the ground. The old ones. The ancients. Gods, I suppose, if we'd ever call them that. Him and her, all his children and his servants. One of them's an old man who smiles all the time. He's in here the most, whistling a tune over and over again. He does the legwork, I think. I've heard him speaking through the doors, only through the wooden ones, though. Talking about a hunt and needing more souls to wake the sleeping one. Sam almost burst out in laughter. He was a writer, sure, but even he had trouble spinning a yarn as long as this one. Maybe he was still in the old mansion, and maybe Abraham Thicket had forgotten to mention a distant relative that was staying in one of the unrenovated wings of the property. A distant relative in this case as a madman who didn't exactly have the most enthralling of conversation. But just then, that's when the droning noise hit a fever pitch, so much so that Sam clasped his forehead in a bright jolt of excruciating static, just as the painfully bright lights that lined the corridor seemed to glow in an unnatural white. It was getting louder and brighter, so high-pitched that Sam felt like his brain could somehow split in two. Henry did the same, hunched over and shuddering, rocking back and forth, humming a strange, vibrating tone. And then ahead of him, at the end of the corridor 30 or so feet away, Sam heard a door creak open. And just like that, the noise passed. And then Abraham Thicket stepped out, his shoes treading softly on the spongy brown carpet. He was smiling, waving his hand at the two of them. "Hello, Sam," he cried out. "I figured you'd wandered off somewhere. I haven't seen you in weeks. Making friends then, I see. Henry, my boy, I haven't seen you in years. It's a wonder we ever find any of you down here. Oh, you poor, poor lost souls. But where else would we keep you?" Abraham chuckled again as he began pacing toward the two of them, and as he did, he pursed his lips and broke out into a strange tune. Di, do, o, fa, Mr. Benjamin's bunker. Henry turned to look at Sam, wide-eyed, sheer panic set in, like a wounded deer in a snare. "Run!" he whispered. "Run!" And with that, Henry bolted in the opposite direction. Sam was about to call the whole thing a bluff, stamp his foot down in the ridiculousness of the situation, and have a frank conversation with the man that had employed him, but just as he raised his hand, the frail old man, Abraham Thicket, started sprinting down the corridor with more vigour and energy than most men half of Sam's age, a vile, twisted grin plastered on his face. And that's when it all hit him. and the stark warnings of Henry's ramblings clicked into place. Sam hadn't taken a wrong turn anywhere. This was always here, waiting for a lost soul to wander in. And ever since he'd answered that advertisement in the back pages of the Valley Reporter, the Rose had been waiting for him. And in that instantaneous clarity of thought, Sam turned and followed Henry. The pair ran and ran, sprinting their way along an endless maze of the same pale yellow corridors, cheap light fixtures droning in their brackets, the spongy brown carpet doing nothing to speed them up. No matter how many turns they took, Abraham Thicket was never far behind, his relentless pace never ceasing. In some ways, it almost felt like the old man was toying with them, as if he could reach out at them at any second, but held back to exhilarate the chase. And as they wound around the corners of the corridors, Sam started to notice a bizarre series of doors that lined the walls. Some of them were cheap and plastic, not out of place in any way with the rest of their surroundings, but others were wooden and intricately carved, polished and varnished in shades of teak and walnut and oak. Several of them were made from strange metals, and some of them even looked as if they were carved from stone. They ran for what seemed like hours, winding their way throughout the endless rows upon rows of corridors, Abraham Thicket always behind, maybe 15 or 20 feet, bellowing with laughter, crying out, "Slow down, boys! We've only got forever!" Gradually, Sam broke ahead of Henry. The panic set in deep, finding a selfish sense of comfort, knowing that another body lay between him and the haunting old man behind. But as he turned a corner up ahead, Sam noticed an oddly familiar door directly in his path. A wooden door with a shining, bright, golden sun adorned in the centre. Sam flared his nostrils. He was set. He was done running. He creased his brow and figured he could make it. And with one deep breath, Sam fixed his feet, leapt up and twisted his shoulder forward with his momentum. And as he sailed through the air, Sam crashed into the familiar wooden door. And to his relief, it shattered into splinters. Abraham Thicket cried out behind him. "You wretch!" he screamed. "You human wretch! He's not ready! He's not ready, you scum!" Sam found himself scattered on a bright red carpet, chunks of wood splayed around him. Henry followed seconds later, screaming out in a panic, panting and wheezing, collapsing in a pile beside him. Sam didn't have time to think. He scanned the room. A four-poster bed lay against the back wall, draped in velvet, crimson sheets glimmering in the dim gloom. And behind it, he could make out the thin silhouette of a figure sleeping, unaware as to the chaos that emerged into the room. Whoever it was, whatever it was, in that instant Sam knew that it was somehow important to Abraham Thicket. And just as he heard the old man's frantic footsteps enter into the room, Sam clutched the red ballpoint pen that had fallen out of Henry's shirt pocket, and in a stride of panic he leapt up beside the bed. Abraham Thicket stepped through the splinters of the door, kicking them aside, not a single sign of exhaustion on his face. Sam glanced down at the figure before him, and instantly a wave of revulsion hit him. It had the strange, sinewy body of an emaciated old man, taut, sallow skin stretched over sinew and bone, pale tufts of hair sprouting from milt spots across the coalescence of its skull. But its face was something else entirely. Where its mouth should have been was a swirl of half-formed teeth that spiraled inward like the fossilized shell of some long-forgotten sea creature. Its eyes were two hollow black orbs that seemed to encase a strange, swirling grey smoke that cascaded and rolled like the waves of some wide, black, sunless sea. It was wheezing like a half-dead deer, its head lolling pitifully back and forth. Sam stood over it, panting and huffing in both rage and panic, his gaze passing from the vile creature before him and Abraham Thicket, whose eyes were now locked onto his. The old man glanced down and chuckled at Henry as he writhed away toward the wall, but as he stepped toward him, Sam unclicked the lid from the ballpoint pen. He clutched it in his fist and held it high. It brayed and heaved in fear, unable to move the half-sealed sinew of its half-formed corpse, and Thicket's head snapped upwards. "Don't," he said toyingly. "Don't be such a silly little human being. You don't know what kind of power you're holding a pen over." Abraham Thicket cast his gaze back toward Henry, and as he paced forward, he snapped his leg up in one swift movement and caught Henry's throat square with his boot. "I'll just kill you both," said Abraham Thicket. "It's a waste, but it'll be fun to do things the old-fashioned way for once." In that moment, Sam called the old man's bluff, and as he wound his hip back to take another shot at Henry, Sam thrust down the pen, and as Abraham cried out in furious anger, the thin ballpoint tip pierced the dark, iridescent veil of the creature's eye socket. The noise it made was a sound that Sam would never forget. It was a tone that had never before permeated its way throughout the halls of a house or a home, and as it shrieked and sputtered, a thick, vile black ooze seeped from the puncture wound, covering the creature in an undulating sludge that writhed like the entrails of some long-forgotten serpent. It rose up in a cloud of black vapor, steaming and bubbling, and before Sam knew it, a strange, obscene wind raged from the creature's eye socket, surging through the room, bellowing like an ancient storm. And then, as a dark mist enveloped the room completely, escaping out into the endless darkness of the doorway, the creature was gone. Abraham Thicket with it, too. Henry lay on the ground, panting and clutching at his throat, but as the two men came back to their senses, the splinters of wood that had lay scattered across the carpet vibrated and shook into life, and piece by piece, in a perfect synchronicity, they rearranged themselves into the threshold, and before they knew it, the door was complete and whole, and it slammed shut. Sam stepped forward, the red ballpoint pen still clutched tight in his fist, and cautiously he twisted open the doorknob, and before him, to his relief, lay the same extravagant corridor that he had roamed all those days, weeks, perhaps even months before. And as he stepped out through the window, Sam saw the bright warmth of the morning.
Wow. The end.
The end.
What a saga.
The end.
How do you feel?
Whew. Well,
That was my first question.
I think that was the first happy ending I've ever written.
Yeah?
Although, whether it is happy is beggars belief, but yeah.
Well, I mean, happy that they lived. Traumatizing for them. Perhaps just the beginning of something, you know?
Perhaps it is the beginning of something, Daniel.
I mean, the old ones is plural, right? They might have got one, but there's many old ones. It was great. It was great. It felt like I got the same feeling of like going to watch a movie in the cinema of a franchise that you already really like. And, you know, you just jump straight back in there and like just the characters and the references. Like it felt so easy. It was a really interesting thing to hear a story where you're already fully aware of the setting.
Yes.
Something we've not done before.
Yes. Yeah, that isn't something we've done before, actually. Yeah.
No.
And we could elaborate on a new setting as well. Yeah.
But you jumped into it straight away. I loved that pacing, and I loved. I just loved all the references. I know there's so many references I probably missed, and ones where I was thinking like, was that a reference?
Which ones were the most glaringly obvious to you?
Friendship box.
Yes. So you get that Henry.
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
Yeah.
That's checked off.
Yeah.
So Henry has been in the Rose ever since we last saw him in the friendship box.
Exactly.
What else?
Well, there's a couple of references to my stories.
There were.
I noticed.
There were.
of which I probably ice cream with the mirrors
Yep.
and that kind of stuff.
Yep.
Tickets, please.
Yep.
Train, that stuff.
Yep.
The stone one, was that the Balkan?
Maybe.
Was it? Or you don't know. Or was it? Why can't you say yes to that? Because I haven't finished that one yet.
The Balkan may tie into this story.
Ah, I see. Right. Okay, the Balkan's one of the old ones, right?
Well. See, I don't know. I don't want to spoil it again. I know that we promised you guys answers in this one, but I feel like there are answers to Sam's story, 100%.
Yeah.
I feel like this is a part of Revolution, but there's a reason why I wanted to keep a little bit of mystery,
Yeah.
just for both of us to explore and uncover.
Yeah. That's why it felt like a chapter ending in a bigger story.
Yes.
you know,
Which is what I wanted.
which is really cool.
Yeah.
I thought Thicket was great and terrifying, and sort of creepy how if he is the same person throughout these things,
He is.
but he sort of has similar qualities, but he is shifty as well.
Yes.
And I remember in what was the name of the one with the woman who is like reincarnating,
Ancestry.
right? And then she has what's his name in that?
That's Arthur.
Tenenbrook.
Arthur Tenenbrook, yeah.
Right.
I forget because they're all 18.
Yeah. But he was like really sort of scared almost of her.
He is scared of her.
So that was really interesting to see, you know, in reference to humans, how he is around humans compared to like how scary must these creatures be. And that one obviously was one that wasn't ready yet. You know, so obviously he wasn't scared of that one yet. But yeah, he's sort of like reminds you of like a worker bee in a hive or something. Like each one of those is different cells or something where these things.
He's almost like, yes, that's a great analogy if I've ever heard one. He's almost like the seneschal of the rose.
Okay.
He's like the lawyer.
Okay.
Do you know, like
Right.
he bends it, but he has his side projects somewhere else as well.
Right. Well, I was going to say, I'm guessing we know that he isn't human. We also know he's not one of them either. So there's got to be something else going on with a creature like that. He's a creature. I'm guessing he's not human, but
An entity, I think is probably.
But he's been the most interesting thread that I pull on.
Well, he's been the thread that's been throughout, and it's easier to link back things. Like the friendship box was my second story, I think, and it was the fourth story we ever did.
Yeah,
I believe so.
Okay.
So I mean, yeah, it's kind of been there for a while and stuff, and one of my favourite parts, actually, if I don't mind too much, was actually using Henry as a.
Yeah, I know. That was if this was a movie, the shot would be going up from it would be Sam sort of like scrambling on the floor and looking out, and the shot would be the camera would be slowly going up the tie, and then it would see the red, and then his face, and then the crowd. You'd hear people in the cinema going, "Oh yeah!" The trumpet section would swell. Like,
Yes. Yeah.
And that was a really cool moment. Yeah.
Just a weird moment. Because ever since I finished the friendship box, I wanted to go back to where he went.
Yeah.
Because that's just one of many mechanics, shall we say, that they employ to get people. I also don't want us to divulge into a world building exercise. Let's focus on this.
No. It's an interesting thing to talk about, though. The bigger picture, the bigger picture, which is strange because we usually reserve this time for just talking about the story. And how the story do, but we spend most of our time already. So why don't we talk about the actual story? Because I was absolutely enthralled with the way you read it as well. That you read it really well.
Thanks. My heart was racing all the way throughout that. My heart was racing. Yeah.
But yeah, from the second that they started running, it was a real tour de force of incredibly intricate description of everything, but at such a rapid pace. I followed everything. I followed every last little description of the spongy floor or whatever, or every single door. But it felt like I was running. You know.
Yeah.
I think a more experienced writer might have to, might end up sacrificing some of the pace or action to describe everything. But yeah, the way you described it and the way you read it, like I felt like I was running. I really felt like I was running.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. So good job on that.
Thank you. We haven't had a chase sequence yet, have we?
What about the hunted? Was that sort of chasing?
Kind of. It was like a showdown, wasn't it? Although still body count. Cassie and I were talking about who holds the largest body count. It's still you. It's still you, buddy. Don't worry about it. The cellmate.
Well, it's probably just because of that, really. I don't think I killed that many people before that. I don't know.
No, I don't think
you counted.
No. 15 in the cellmate, though.
Oh, you counted that?
Well, Cassie did.
Cassie did. Was it really 15?
Yeah.
Was it? Okay. Anyway, that's not the point. Talk about Jack's story. Yeah, fantastic story. Brilliantly written, really well read.
Thank you, man.
And yeah, written with confidence, written with real confidence. You felt really comfortable in that world, in that house. I could see now. Jack came to me after writing the first half and was like, I don't think I'm going to be able to finish this in one story. So we talked about doing a part 2, and I can see why now, because it sounded like it was just pouring out of you at that point. It's like I can't put a plug on this. It was brilliant. Yeah.
I think I wrote the whole thing, part 1 and part 2 in about 5 hours, maybe.
Yeah.
All in all.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So,
there we go. That's the old ones. I know it's more questions than answers, but
no, it's a rewarding setup. It's a rewarding setup for the future as well.
Yes.
So I didn't give it a score. I didn't give it a score for part 1 because that would have been unfair.
You didn't.
So I'm going to give it a score now, and I'm going to give it an 8.2. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's not what I thought you'd given me my highest score yet.
What?
I'm kind of disappointed.
You're disappointed? What?
I was the only 8.2. I thought I'd go.
Okay. Wow. This is our first disappointed score.
Yeah, it's fine, man. Good.
I loved it. I loved it, and I'm excited for everything that's to come in the future.
What do I need to do to get a 9, man?
I would say.
I don't want to know.
Okay. All right. Well, if any of you disagree with me, let me know. You're just not gonna.
No. 8.2 is fine.
I loved it. I really did. And I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes. I think that when it comes to the scariness of it, I'm scared of this larger world, but right now it's sort of, terra incognita, but it's sort of, what you create is a big looming black hole, and we've got a really scary piece of it, and that's really exciting.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
A looming black hole.
Yeah. But let us know what you guys think.
What do you guys think?
If you agree with me or disagree with me, if you want
to think
Jack,
it was a 9?
let us know what you want us to talk about or write about next, and we might take in some of your suggestions.
And we need to talk about a live stream as well.
Yeah, we are going to do a live stream. If you're watching this on Thursday, we're thinking about doing a live stream tomorrow, so we'll put that up. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, Friday. Yeah. So I'll put it up on the channel, and everyone can go and follow it. Do you follow a live stream before it goes live?
Yeah.
Do you do? Subscribe to the live stream. I don't know.
You'll see something pop up
in the next 24 hours. Yeah. And we're gonna make it an extra special one. We are going to be reading out some stories, but we've realised that we need to read out shorter stories. We're going to get a lot more stories in.
And we also have an important thing to say about that as well, about submissions and stories, because I know we've said this loads, but you will find out tomorrow. If you're watching this video on Thursday, you will find out what we mean tomorrow, right?
Yes.
You sure?
There is going to be big updates. I was just racking my head then for
no
what
one knows.
Updates are.
Yeah.
We're all over the place, but it's going to come together tomorrow.
We'll write it down maybe.
Yes.
On a list. We'll check it twice.
Do a schedule. A schedule.
We should
probably end the video, really. No?
We should really. This one's gone on for so long.
Yeah. How do you want to blow out the fire this week?
Abraham? Imagine if like he just walked in. Imagine if I'd hired an actor to come in dressed as Abraham Thicket and blow the fire out. Is that a 9? 8.3.
Yeah, 8.3.
8.25. Maybe next time.
No, that would be a 9. Yeah.
Would it be a 9?
Yeah, of course. Are you kidding? It'd be terrifying. But until next time, guys. Thanks for watching.
I've been Jack.
And I've been Danny.
We're going to blow out the fire. We're just going to do the old-fashioned one.
Yeah.
Did we do that last week?
No, like two times before.
Okay, we can...
What you do the noise that creature made?
It didn't really. It was like...
Okay, we can just do that. There you go, from the writer's mouth.
Goodbye, everybody.